Season 3 is my favourite season, which is quite controversial in itself, with Series 4 normally being people's top pick, especially when ranking David Tennant's series. And whilst I like this series, some of these are really going to fuel people, so this is going to be interesting. So, how this ranking is going to work, I count two-parters as one, and I'm including David Tennant's specials, so the ones after Series 4, in this list. There's 14 to rank. I'm going to stop babbling and get straight into number 14, which is The Next Doctor. If you didn't know, I'll say it again, I have a strong dislike for Christmas specials, apart from A Christmas Carol, because it offers pure cheesiness and a bit of a filler, like it's Christmas time, so a little bit of fun. And whilst I probably do enjoy them in the actual festivity period, so Christmas Day, it's nice to have a bit of Doctor Who, it's nice to see a snowball fight or a Christmas tree that's going to kill Jackie Tyler. I don't mind them. Ranking them against other stories though, they never do very well, and this one is purely a filler. There's a little bit of a tease of the next Doctor potentially being David Morrissey. I think he's fantastic in The Walking Dead, and I think he's alright here as well. But apart from the sort of banter between these two, when we find out he's not the next Doctor, and it's kind of just, it means nothing to me, and it's just, I don't really care for it. It's a bit of fun, but like, Number 13. Planet of the Dead. Yeah, the specials aren't really doing themselves very well here. This episode offers a little bit more to The Next Doctor because it's a new threat, you know, it's the Cybermen with the Next Doctor. In this, we have this sort of sand demons, I don't know what you call them, that kill you, basically. I do quite like the idea that the sand was, used to be civilization, and it's people that have died. I think that is really, I think it's called the Swarm that were eating everybody. I think it's actually, again, a filler episode, but an interesting story. The title's pretty good with Planet of the Dead. It rolls quite well. I quite like Michelle Ryan in this. I don't think she would have been good as a full-time companion, but I think with the one episode that we get with her, she's really, really good actually. But I can't deal with her any more than that. I think just one episode, after that you're milking it a little bit. So I quite like the other little monsters that we get. They're quite nice. They get killed obviously, but there's a lot of stop and starting in this episode. We do get a little bit of action. I quite like the ending as well, you know, the flying bus. It's very Doctor Who, that's all I'm going to say. Number 12. The Doctor's Daughter. I don't know if this episode is kind of ruined because the relationship now between Georgia Tennant and David Tennant. If you didn't know, FYI, they're now husband and wife, but in this, they're father and daughter. And I think this kind of idea that the Doctor has a daughter has sort of just been killed by Doctor Who theories, and people kind of just ignore this episode. And apart from this whole big thing that the Doctor's got a daughter, oh my goodness, not much else really happens. What I do like about this episode is the ending. I love the speech the Doctor makes about make this a place where a man never would. A man never would use a gun, use violence, start a war. It's a really, really nice message, and it doesn't give itself enough to plump it up the list, but it's a little bit of it's a cherry on a mediocre cake. But number 11 is The Fires of Pompeii. I really just didn't like this episode for quite a while, and I rewatched it about a few months ago, and I actually kind of liked it. I think I appreciated the setting more. I appreciate Peter Capaldi more. He's always tying with David Tennant to be the best Doctor for me, and in this I think he's really, really good. I guess the thing that brings it down is kind of, I mean, the effects are poor, but I mean, most of them are on this list. I'm not going to take them into effect. You have to remember the time the Doctor Who was on in the budget, and it's the BBC. So I think the story holds up pretty well. Yet again, the bit that I remember from this episode is the ending where Donna is like, just save someone. Not the whole town, just save someone. And we see that that look that the Doctor gives, where he was totally against saving anybody, and we see him end up saving, of course, Peter Capaldi. But that was quite a nice little moment. So yeah, again, not much happens, but nice little bits of moments, and I really do think the Doctor and Donna are really, really great together. Their chemistry is fantastic. Okay, let's move up then to number 10, the first two-parter, the Sontaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky. I actually think this sets up part 2 quite well. I think then it just sort of, it's a very bumpy ride, this two-part. I think it starts really, really well. We are made aware of threat with the woman being killed in the car early on due to the, is it Asmos? It's something like that. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't quite remember, you know what I mean. And just like bringing the army into it. But also this is really good for Donna as she goes back to her family. She realises that, you know, I do need to go back to my family. And we see her reminiscing about what she's done with the Doctor already very, very early on. And maybe it just gets a little bit too much for her. But it's very, very bumpy. The Sontarans, I'm not really bothered about them. The thing that puts us up the list, and people might be a little bit shocked it's not higher, is the return of Martha Jones. A very, very different Martha Jones to what we knew from Series 3. A very independent, strong woman who's joined UNIT. And again, that moment where the Donna's like, is this what happens when companions leave you? You turn them into soldiers. Now, it's always very controversial, the whole idea of Martha, of what she became. I personally think it did great. I think it was great for her, and it did her character development great because of how she was treated and what she was like in Series 3. I think it's perfect and it fits this really well. Sontar Ha at the end where the Doctor explodes them all. I think that's cheesy, but it works. It's actually quite funny. Okay, let's move up then to number 9. The opening of Series 4, Partners in Crime. I like Partners in Crime much more than anybody else, and this is when we're going to start getting controversial, and actually you're going to be really annoyed very, very soon at some of my rankings. But this, apart from we get obviously the iconic moment where they're talking through the doors, that's really, really funny, but the whole idea of putting aside the Doctor Donna, where we see them set up, and I think that's great, Rose coming in at the end to set up a mystery box, I think that's all fantastic. But the core idea of the story, which a lot of people tend to just miss or don't care about because it's filler, well, it is filler, but it's interesting filler. I quite enjoy the Adipose Industries. Kind of like it, the whole idea that Donna is waving at Fat. I'm like, yes, this is what I want from Doctor Who. Okay, let's move up then to number 8, Turn Left. This episode isn't particularly bad as low as it is. I think it's purely because it's set up and I know what's coming after it. So when I revisit it, I'm like, yeah, I just want to get to the big moments, the moments that are actually big and important. And it's not saying this episode is not needed. This is very, very much needed to have them moments where Rose is warning everybody about the end of the world, and maybe because the finale is so massive, it's so dramatic, there are so many characters coming back in. Turn Left is very, very much needed. Just because I may look past it doesn't mean I don't think it's needed. And if I was watching Doctor Who for the first time, I would generally quite enjoy Turn Left, and I would admire that this episode is needed. So yeah, it's kind of an episode which like isn't the best, but it had to be there to make the finale work. Number 7. This is probably the most controversial one so far because this is normally in the top 3, if not the top spot for people, but Midnight. Yeah, I'm going there. I mean, 7th place isn't bad, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of teetering towards fantastic. Maybe it's a little bit overrated, it's spoken about so much. I think it's really clever what Doctor Who use, and the fact that the Doctor's most powerful ability is his voice, especially for David Tennant. And that's taken away here, so that is really interesting. I mean, the characters are so flippin' annoying, like 90% of them are. That obviously means it's working, this is all working. Great acting from everybody. It's just a little bit, I don't know, I can't explain it. I'm a little bit underwhelmed. I just think because I've rewatched it so many times, the arguing, the talking over each other, which is a great idea, and then we slowly see them turning into, you know, into the Doctor, and they're saying things before the Doctor says things, is really good. It's just, I've overplayed it too much, and other things have gone up. I don't hate this at all. I think this is really, really good. Okay, let's move up then to number 6. The Unicorn and the Wasp. This was always about midway, and this has jumped a little bit. And I think this isn't very, I think this is pretty fair. I think it's a classic whodunit murder mystery with Doctor Who style. The twist is that it's a giant wasp. I love the feel, I love the locations used, the language, Agatha Christie. I think it's all really, really good. Doctor and Donna are amazing here. There are bits in the story where at the end it's kind of like the wasp is just, the fact the wasp didn't get anybody like the Doctor or Donna or Agatha, it just annoys me at how it's played out, so that the script, it goes along and we all get what we want in the end, and the wasp just kind of, I do like the twist that that Agatha does get affected and she forgets everything. Okay, yeah. But apart from that, I think I generally didn't know who did it. The Vicar, that's quite a really nice twist where we find out that the Vicar is her son, and it all basically makes sense and it comes together, and it's a classic Agatha Christie style Doctor Who episode. Okay, let's move up then to number 5. The End of Time, Part 1 and 2. This is not Series 4 finale, this is David Tennant's finale. This is with John Sim. Really just Bernard Cribbins, David Tennant and John Sim together as a 3. Yeah, look, I think the regeneration is heart-wrenching, it's upsetting, it's generally really, really sad and very, very well done. Visiting all of the companions is really, really emotional. Did it go on for too long? You could argue maybe. It didn't stop me emotionally, I think it's great. It's just, I didn't like how the Master kind of just reversed, everything the Master did was reversed. It just felt a little bit too easy on how it all ended. It's classic finales that Russell T Davies does, but the Master, I'm actually prefer him in Series 3 more than here, because even though he does come across as quite messed up here, while in Series 3 he's like a jumping beanbag, I don't think he really plays the messed up very well. I think he's known as like the jumping beanbag crazy Master, and his performance here is dragged down a little bit. Did it need to be a 2-part finale? I'm not quite sure. Maybe it could have just been 90 minutes. I quite think because of how the Power of the Doctor was sort of filmed, to have it all in 90 minutes or however long it was really did help with the regeneration. But this regeneration was much longer, so we kind of needed it. So yeah, there's better on the list, and number 4 is going to annoy so many people. I'm going to say it now. Oh, I'm going to get so much hate for this. Planet of the Ood is number 4. Don't turn off. I'll wait for you to stop screaming and shouting curse words at your screen. I love the Ood. I'm a sucker. I am such a sucker for the Ood. Like, the idea and the concept of them is exceptional, but also they're just weirdly cute in a messed up, my own head way. Yeah, they totally deserve their own episode after seeing them in The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit. To have an episode centred on them, to see the history of the Ood, to see what they're like amongst their own people, to see how they're treated. The messages which often go under the radar about society and how slaves are treated. It's not a great message, but it's a clever message which is used, not to be too political, but in a Doctor Who way, and it's just a real enjoyment. You've got everything really. You've got the Doctor and Donna in full swing. You've got them asking a lot of questions, stumbling across this new planet. You see the Ood in action. They get their time. You see how they're treated. You see how they fight back, and you see that they get a happy ending as well. And we know it's not easy for the Ood. They're a slave race. They're born to serve. But this kind of just says that them being free, you kind of understand why they want to be free, and at the end you feel really happy that they are free and they get to sing. So there's just a lot of messed up sort of ideas in this, and I think a lot of people just don't really look at this episode much, and maybe I am just really in love with the Ood so much that I put it so far up the list. Like, really, is it better than Midnight? Is it better than The End of Time? Well, for me, yeah, it is. Let's get then to the final three. Number 3, I think people will kind of agree with this a little bit more, is The Stolen Earth and Journey's End. Oh, I mean, I'm literally nearly 20 minutes into this video already, but very, very simply, this was a massive finale, and there was a risk. You had, flipping heck, about 8, 9 characters coming back in, all from Russell T Davies's era, all from David Tennant and Christopher Eccleston's era. And it's done brilliantly. Everyone gets their entrance, everybody has their moments, everybody gets a good send-off, everybody is contributing in some way, yes, some more than others, but everybody, you feel like everyone's there. And a lot of writers have issues when they bring too many characters in, like Chris Chibnall with his 3 companions, where they kind of just don't give them anything. And yeah, these characters had their own series, the majority of them, they had their own time to develop, so we already knew about them. But the audience had to know that there was a good reason to bring them into the finale. They had a reason to be in this finale, and I think that is established very, very well. And credit to RTD, he knows how to write characters, especially when there's 15 of them all in the TARDIS. Great, great moment. Great 2-part of the Daleks. Yeah, it's very the Daleks finale. Davros, I really like Davros in this, and the 2 Doctors, the ending for Rose, the ending for everybody, the Donna ending broke me. Yeah, this episode takes you through all sorts of emotions, and it's good. But number 2 is The Waters of Mars. Yes, easily the best Doctor Who special, the best David Tennant special, and there's no argument in that. Filler episode, this is how you do a filler episode. I love it when Doctor Who goes dark, but in their own original way. What I mean by that is using water, which is something which is harmless, and a lot of people need more of it, to the point where you don't want to touch it, you don't even want to see it. The idea of it makes you feel sick. The whole zombie genre is dying, if you pardon the pun, where it's very much rhetorical, it's just repetitive, it's always the same. And Doctor Who does it differently. Adelaide Brooke is amazing, all the side characters are amazing. I feel really sad for them when I do see them die. Yet again, great in establishing loads of new characters, all in this episode, having basically majority of them dying. And then there's the Time Lord Victorious arc, which I kind of quite like. The Doctor's getting too big for his boots, and Adelaide Brooke teaches him a lesson by saying it's wrong, the Time Lord Victorious, and you're not always going to win, you're not always going to be right, you're not always going to be on the good side, you're going to lose. And she gave him a wake-up call. So really, really good ending. But it's not the best episode of Series 4, and this one has always been in the top 3 easily. It may have even been my top last time. It's the 2-parter, Silence of the Library and Forest of the Dead. Firstly, David Tennant, Alex Kingston, River Song, and Catherine Tate, Donna Noble. I don't know why I keep saying the actors' names, I just automatically do it, are great in this. The whole, coming in the spacesuits and everybody, all the side characters aren't really cared about. I don't really cares about them, but River kind of takes up all of the screen time anyway, so we don't really need to know. I think Miss Angelista's death is really, really hard hitting, seeing her in that moment where she's, dead, and she's got them thoughts, and ghost thoughts I think they were called. And often with 2-parters, I had the problem with sort of The Poison in the Sky, the Sontaran stratagem was you sort of lose pace, very, very bumpy road. This stays consistent throughout, it sets up part 2 really well, and part 2 stays strong. That's because we set up this really, the whole being in a library and there's nobody here, but it's the biggest library in the universe, and where is everybody? And then we find out with the Vashta Nerada and the shadows, a lot is brung up here, and you've got a library where you can do a lot of things with. It's a very eerie library, but also it's a tense episode. It's scary as hell. It kind of does all what the Water of Mars does, but it's just more suspenseful. It's on the edge of your seat. It's the darkness, it's the unknown that Doctor Who plays into here, and that's why it's the best episode of Series 4. The ending is great as well. Of course, everybody is kind of okay, But I mean, to go into part 2 and then introduce something brand new, which is Donna living in 2 different worlds, and then seeing Miss Angelista coming back, her face is deformed, and she makes her realise that it's all a lie, it's all computer based, and then the whole idea of a cow being in the computer and the child. There's so much going on, and it's tied up fantastically, it's brought in fantastically, they use it fantastically, it's amazing. So let me know what you think about your ranking. I'm very aware that many people are gonna annoyed. I'm not quite sure. But that's it now for how much I did. A couple of years ago I went up to Series 4 and I stopped. Now I'll be doing my Series 5 ranking, which I've never done before. I'm not a fan of Series 5 either, so we're going to see how that's going to look. That'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks. But that is it for David Tennant. We're done with that. If you'd like to subscribe, that would be amazing. To reach 1,000 subscribers by the time Series 2 comes out is my aim. That would be fantastic. I love getting new people. I love interacting with you in the comments. Even though I may not interact, I definitely look through all of your long paragraphs. I love them. Keep bringing them in. I'm so interested to hear your thoughts. Keep it nice, and I'll see you all soon.